Okay, so just to review things that we covered in marking period 3. So the first one was rule of thirds. So remember on your phone, you can turn on the grid. I think it's on under settings, but it depends on the phone that you have. So if you haven't turned on your grid on your phone, turn on your grid. And remember for rule of thirds, it's where anything crosses, those lines that cross, that's where you want those areas of interest to be. The second thing we talked about was balancing elements so that things are evenly balanced in the picture. Leading lines, your eyes follow the lines in the picture to whatever subject you're trying to get people to focus on. We talked about symmetry, which means it's even on both sides. Patterns, remember patterns are anything that repeats. Framing means that some part of your picture is blocked so that you can focus on something else. So it could be a tree in the way or a building, it's up, whatever is a kind of blocking part of the picture so you understand that an area is framed out, okay? The other things we talked about for marking period 3 were depth, so things going back in space, cropping an image to get rid of any distractions in the background, and then viewpoint, either angling high or low to get really interesting shots from different angles, okay? So here's our images for this week. We've got a horse that's here, and we've got a cat on a fence. All right, so look closely at these two images. And then choose the photography rule that stands out the most to you. So is it framing, lighting, cropping, blurring, leading lines, or symmetry? Okay, so look closely at these two and then answer these two questions. I'll give everybody a minute to do that. And then when you're done with your do now, make sure you come back to Google Classroom and hit the turn in button here. Okay, so turn it in. Okay, so for this week, our focus is wildlife and animal photography. There we go. So our learning targets, like always, you need to be able to identify an animal or wildlife photograph. You need to be able to explore different types of animal or wildlife photographs. And you need to be able to use those 9 rules of composition that we just talked about in making a good quality finished image that you turn in. So what is wildlife and animal photography? It's basically a type of photography concerned with documenting different forms of animals and wildlife, often in their natural habitat, or if it's a pet, maybe at home, right? So let's go through some tips. So if you have a pet, this project this week is for you. Like it's a perfect and ideal situation. If you don't worry, I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you have a pet, you want to shoot where they're comfortable. So if it's an indoor cat, then take pictures inside. If it's a dog that's usually outside, take pictures outside. If it's a bird that's in a cage, take a picture, while they're in the cage. Where they're most comfortable is going to get the most interesting shots. Now, I want you to look at this one. You can see here, the person is sitting on the ground, like they're laying down here to get this shot so they can get a close-up view of their animal. So you want to get low, so get on the same level of your animal. If the animal is like a cat and it's in a window, you can move up close and you don't have to kind of crouch down. But sometimes you can't control the angle. So if you're at the park and you see, I don't know, geese or ducks or something like this, you can't necessarily control like too much of the angle. You can't get really close because they may fly away or move away. So you might just have to try some different slight angles to get some more interesting shots. Just try your best. So again, moving down to their layer, or to their level, sorry, and trying to get close to them. You may have to light it on the ground. You might have to try to get the best view by manipulating and kind of getting different angles and shots. Now, if you have a pet, we all know, at least I do, I have 3 dogs and they're very motivated by treats, food items of any kind. So you know your pet the best. So what will get their attention? Usually food, right? What will keep their attention so that you could take some pictures of them in a way that you like. So maybe it's a toy, maybe it's like food, whatever works for your pet or animal if you have one. A good point to make here is to keep shooting in burst mode. Remember, we did that with the sports and action photography. You just hold down the button to take a picture. Every camera on each phone is a little bit different, but usually if you just hold it down, you can get multiple pictures at the same time, and then you can choose from those pictures which one is the best. Depending on what kind of animal you're around, the biggest thing to try to capture the focus is to zoom in. So look for those details to get the best shot possible. You can see in this image, this in the foreground, this branch here is blurred out, and in the background it's blurred out because they tapped their screen so they could focus on the snake. One of the things that really adds to that element of kind of inviting you into the photograph is trying to capture eyes. So, try to be eye level, so move your camera down, but also just try to see if you can get eyes in the shot. It just makes it really interesting and people can kind of relate to that animal if they can see the eyes a little bit more. Okay, so just something to kind of add another level. And again, try to capture their personality. If you have like a really lazy animal who sleeps all day, then if they're sleeping, that might be the best personality. That's them, right? If they're very like jumpy and bouncy and high energy, maybe you capture them when they're doing like those jumps or running around. Now, if you don't have a pet, like, okay, I have no pet, how in the world am I going to do this assignment? You have to be resourceful, okay? So, 1, can you take pictures of animals outside? Just sit outside, look around. There's insects, there's ants crawling on the ground. There's squirrels up in the tree if you can get a shot, try to zoom into it. Rabbits, birds, I've seen lots of pictures with the birds in them. Chipmunks, things moving around, anything moving around outside just while you're sitting there. If you go to a park, you'll see lots of geese there and ducks. So birds are an easy one to try to capture. Or if you've ever visited anywhere like a zoo or a wildlife park, or say you went to go visit your family, in PR and you had like pictures of iguanas, like anything as long as it's a picture you took of the animal would work for this week. Okay, so you've got to make sure that it's an actual picture of an animal. So it can be something from a pet inside or outside insects, rabbits, squirrels, birds, or if you went to a zoo and had pictures from that. Yeah.
Is my phone?
Yeah, no, it has to be actual like in-person stuff, not through the computer. So you have to like have him actually kick something and then you can take a picture of that.
Not right now.
This is good for inspiration. You can use that one for inspiration sheet.
How about this one right here? This?
It's not really showing any movement. I guess you could work with sports. That one would work. And that one would work. But the other one, no. That one would work, yeah.
This 3.
Yeah. But the other one is like with the computer, it isn't going to
But it
work.
shows you took a picture right now.
Yeah.
Video,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it can be shooting.
Yep. And then take a picture as they're shooting. Okay. All right. So go through your photos and see what you have. See if you've taken pictures of any animals in your photos. So look through all your stuff. If you have zoo photos, make sure you crop and maybe blur so that the focus is on the animal. Okay, so you don't want to focus on trees. You know how before when we looked at architectural photos, if you have a whole line of people standing in front of a building, the focus is on the people, not the building, right? So in this case, you want to make sure for the zoo photos or any animal photos, the animal should be the focus. When it comes to lighting, daylight is best. Okay, so if you go outside, that's the best light that you can have. Or if you're in a room and it's the middle of the day, again, the best light is daylight. Sunrise and sunset, there's more animals who are active. So you may see, if you go outside around sunset, you may see more animals moving around. You may, if you sit there quietly, see a rabbit running across, or maybe you see a squirrel or a bird. But they're usually more active around sunrise or sunset. If it's overcast or rainy, it's not a good idea to take pictures inside or outside because the artificial light won't capture as good of a quality of image, especially outside, right? You're not going to have enough light to do it. You could always try to use the flash, but it's probably not the ideal situation regardless. So if it's too overcast, if it's too cloudy, or if it's rainy, it may not be the best situation as far as lighting. And be flexible because we have no idea, like with this one, you may need more time. Again, we were talking about for seniors, the deadline is to turn things in is by the 9th. So make sure you have things turned in by the 9th. But maybe if you need that extra time to get some shots, or you need to go somewhere, go to a park this weekend to get something, to get animals, you have to be flexible and adaptable. So again, you don't get penalized for turning things late, but if you don't get things turned in on time, like before the end of the marking period, so again, that's the 9th for seniors and the 16th for everybody else. If you don't get the work turned in, then I have to put in a 0. So you have to be flexible, like as far as trying to get the shots and trying to plan out when you can get them if you don't have a pet at home. But still, you have until that deadline. So if you need more time, you can. And again, burst mode is really the way to do it. So if you're around a pet or an animal outside, it's you only might have a few seconds to capture it. So hit that burst mode, try to get as many shots as possible so you can get many to choose from, and then all you need is 5 to turn in. If you're looking at insects or animals in general, you have to be patient, okay? You have to sit there for a minute and see what's around you, try to capture them. I had somebody who turned in some amazing shots with bees. I was like really, really impressed. And it was just one bee. She was taking pictures of flowers, and then just one bee flew over and she got it. So you never know. You just have to be patient. When it comes to contrast, don't forget that many animals can blend into their surroundings, especially if they're an outside animal and it's not a pet. So you have to think about what the background is. So you might have to angle your phone to get maybe more of the sky as a background to have some contrast so you can see that animal better. The other thing is up close. So you want to get as close as possible to your subject, which is in this case an animal or wildlife creature of some kind. In this picture right here with the hand, I would crop it even more. I would get even closer so it's just the turtle, not the hand. Okay, so make sure you get as close as possible with your details. And fish is another great example. Anybody with a fish tank, you can even go to like an aquarium or a fish store. There's lots of places that you can buy fish from, and you could just go in and take some pictures, and you're done. So fish is a great example too. Remember to edit. So crop, level, adjust the color and contrast, and make your animal the focal point of your photograph. So like always, make an inspiration sheet for yourself. So at least 3 images. Now, if you know, okay, I've got a pet, I've got a dog at home, I know I'm gonna take pictures of a dog. When you're doing your inspiration sheet, put dog pictures there, right? If you know that you have pictures in your phone from when you went to the zoo in, I don't know, Atlanta, then maybe you can use those. And so when you're doing your inspiration sheet, just find pictures of the animals that you already have pictures of. Kind of work backwards, okay? So make sure you have an inspiration sheet and then 5 photos of animal or some sort of wildlife creature of some kind. It could be insects too. And I'll pull out of this. And then just really quickly, I will come back to you guys. And I just want to make sure I reiterate one more time. So for marking period 4, we had portraits, landscapes, still life, macro photography, that's zooming in on small objects. We had architectural, so that's buildings. And we had sports and action, and then animal, and then we'll have one more. And again, I'm going to try to post that if I can't do it today, maybe tomorrow, so that anybody who's a senior has time to try to get that last project in. I want to give you as much time as possible. So I'm going to try to get to it today. The other thing is I'm going to go through and update grades. I usually wait till towards the end of the marking period to put in zeros because I don't want anybody to like freak out. But at this point, we're close enough to the end of the year that you need to know if you're missing something. So what I'll do is I'll go through on PowerSchool, check everything in Google Classroom, and if you're missing anything, I'm going to put in zeros for it. That way you know what you need to turn in. When it comes to grades for the class, the inspiration sheet is a classwork grade, so it's worth less points. The photos are worth the most points, so make sure you have all your photos turned in to get the most points to pass the class, okay? So photos are worth the most points, so make sure you go through from all the weeks that you're missing, if you're missing any, and turn in any of the photos that you need to turn in, okay? Because those are going to be worth the most points. All right, anybody have any questions? Oh, one more thing. I had mentioned with the classes earlier that one of the things the district is doing is they do not want us to have a final exam. In the past, for a class, we would have an exam, and the exam would be 20% of your overall grade, and we're not going to have that. So there's not going to be a final test for me. There's not going to be any final exam, but you do need to, yeah, so you do need to make sure you have all of your photos turned in because they're going to be worth more points essentially because you're not going to have a test grade or an exam grade that you have to fall back on. Okay? So make sure you have all of your stuff turned in so you can have the highest grade possible. Okay? Anybody have any questions? Okay. All right, if you guys are good, let's use this time to get things caught up and then work on your animal photos. And then again, I'll try to post the next week's assignment early so you have access. Seniors deadline is the 9th. Everybody else has until the 16th. Okay? I'm excited to see them. All right, guys. Okay, I'll be here if you need me, but you don't have to stay on the call. Go ahead and get to work, okay? Bye. See you later. I'll comment on those photos. I'll check them out. All right, bye. All right, so